this week I will be mostly burying my lead.
Hello and welcome to Scamp Build UK, where I'm building an 11-foot 11-inch micro cruising dinghy designed by John Welsford. If that's the sort of thing that you'd like to be interested in, then why not come along with me? So here's the thing. We've got our piece of lead, which needs to sit in the part of the centreboard with the most meat. So we don't want it to fall into the bit where it's chamfered down here or onto the leading edge down here. I want to sit on the nice flat bit. So this is the position, roughly, where I want the lead to be in the keel. But the pocket that we cut has to be on the inside. Now I could measure the distance from there to the edge and down from the bottom and up from the top. But actually, this is all going to get covered in epoxy and fiberglass anyway, so I'm not bothered about there being holes in the centreboard. So what I've done is I've drilled a hole here, and I've drilled one in here, and each corresponding corner. And then, when we flip the centreboard over, then I've got some references as to where it is that we want to put the pocket on the inside. There we go. We've got two sides of the centreboard with exactly the same hole marked out on these sides. Now we need to set up a router jig. So here's what we have. I want to route the inside of this line here. I don't want to do it in a nice straight line. So I'm going to position the router so that the blade is just touching the inside of that line. And then I'm going to mark the outside of where the router goes, and I'm going to do the same on this side. And then I can strike a line between those two and put a fence along so that the router won't be able to go any further out than that. So here we go. I've got the guide set up along the first line. I've got the router set to a very, very small cut to begin with. And I'm just going to pass it down along that first line just to see how that goes. Right, so the lead's sitting in there, and it's just around about 3 or 4 millimeters proud at the highest spot. So actually it's a bit deep in this one. I've gone down to a depth of around about 12 millimeters in that one, and the lead is around about 12 to 16 millimeters, so actually it's a bit too deep in this one, but that's okay, that's not a problem. I think we'll get away with that. So we now just got to do a similar route on this side, and then we should be good to join together. So I made a bit of a mistake there, and I slipped with the router, as is probably the way, but that doesn't matter. That'll all get filled up with epoxy anyway, so all good. I've routed out the edge of the pocket, and last time I struggled a little bit trying to do the inside, but this time I've got a secret weapon. I've made myself a Perspex routing plate. Let's see how this does. So we've got the pocket in both sides of the centreboard. We've got the piece of lead in its place, and the observant among you will notice that there is another bit of lead, because after we've removed all the dross from melting the main part, we're actually just about 1/4 kilo too shy. So I've got some extra little bits of lead, and that's going to make up the balance. So let's see what we've got. Hopefully now it'll all come clear what this has all been about. Fantastic. And then we have one heavy centreboard. So it's time to start playing around with the sticky stuff, and you will see that because of that I am wearing what my girlfriend refers to as my costume elegante. Don't ask me why it is that I have a pair of stone-washed dungarees. I have absolutely no idea. Anyway, so on with the show. What we've got is some epoxy. I'm going to be using a slow hardener for that with this one, because although it's quite cold, I just want plenty of working time on this job. I got some colloidal silica to thicken up. I have a paintbrush, a stirring stick, loads of pots, and some scales. So the plan will be to sandwich this thick fiberglass cloth between the two sides of the centreboard, with the lead in the middle. The plan of action will be, first of all, to mix up some thickened epoxy and bed the lead on the underside here. Then put a wet coat of epoxy down on the centreboard. Then lay down the glass. Then wet that out. And then, if I get time, I'm going to put some thickened epoxy on this side, fill up the pocket with thickened epoxy, and smush them together. Let's give it a go. So sure about is that I know that other builders have coated their centreboard and centreboard trunk with a layer of graphite mixed in with epoxy to provide a non-slip surface, which I've heard good things about, but I've also heard that that can take away some of the hardness from the epoxy itself, so I'm not sure whether I want to do that or whether I do. maybe if you have an opinion, you could leave some information about your thoughts in the comments. Thanks. So it's been a pretty good week all in all. I was hoping to be able to show you the centreboard in all its glory, but sadly the epoxy hasn't still quite cured. It's pretty cold over here, and I might not have put enough hardener in, so it's going to take a good few days, I think, for it to get to the level where I'm happy to take the weights off and everything. But it's all looking good. The lead seems to have buried in quite well. The glue up went as I'd expected, and I'm looking forward to shaving off the fringes of the fiberglass, and then we can set about doing the last little bit of shaping and setting up the centreboard for its final coatings of fiberglass, which we will get around to next week. And of course, if you are enjoying watching me mess around with bits of wood, then you could always subscribe and see if we can get those subscribers to the channel up. See you next week.